we're going to spin the roulette wheel and see what questions you and I are going to talk about.
And bad news is good news in the world of journalism.
I like the idea of using AI to help us communicate and teach and explain better. Peter.
David.
Hello, and welcome to Call Me Data.
Welcome back, David.
Yeah. So we have some interesting things we're going to talk about this week, and
we do.
A little foreshadowing. You don't know what they are.
I know, but I'm assuming they're interesting, even though I have absolutely no idea what we're going to speak about.
Oh,
we'll kind of wing it.
No,
we always do.
It'll be interesting.
I'm sure.
Trust me on this?
I have no doubt.
Yes. So before I explain what we're going to do you want to talk about our upcoming episode?
Yeah, no, I think this is a great opportunity. So what we're looking for are questions. Lots of questions. So our audience, and I'm assuming we have an audience, if you have interesting questions, in the future episode, we're actually going to go through a list of questions that are interesting, and we're going to address those questions. Now, you can comment on, we obviously want to keep it to artificial intelligence and anything around AI space. The one exception to that rule is David Shirts. You're allowed to comment on David Shirts.
They're always fair game.
Yeah, if you'd like to know where he purchases them, he will be more than happy to tell you that. So please, but yes, all kidding aside, please, it's a future episode. We're going to have Ask Me Anything questions. So please reach out, and the email address is podcast@allinondata.com to send your questions.
Perfect. All right. So Peter, today we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to play AI Roulette.
Okay.
So I'll explain to you the way this is going to work. If we can bring up the roulette board.
Oh, we've got a roulette board.
We have a roulette board.
Second.
Here, yes.
And I got a picture of me in the middle of this board.
Well, of course, we have to do it right. Come on. So I've got 10,
I love this.
10 somewhat random questions about AI here, and we're going to spin the roulette wheel and see what questions you and I are going to talk about.
This is interesting.
All right. So are you ready?
I love the picture in the middle. I'm sorry.
It's the little touches that
they go a long way. It makes me very happy.
Okay, so Peter, you are on the roulette wheel. If you're ready, we're going to spin the wheel, and we'll see
Roll
what the first
wheel.
topic is.
Let's do this.
Spin the wheel. And I can't wait to see what it's going to be. Let's see.
This is funny.
Oh. Okay. All right. So here's question number 1. Is AI a bubble that's about to burst? So you and I can talk about this.
Let's go through this.
And this is timely because we're still hearing a lot in the news about an AI bubble.
Yeah, no, this is all over the news. And I do not think it's going to burst. I think we are through a transitionary period, which is very timely, but I definitely don't think it's about to burst. Contrary to what every journalist on the planet seems to think, because, if it bleeds, it leads, and bad news is good news in the world of journalism. But I really don't think it's about to burst, all kidding aside. I do think we're going through a transitionary period. I think we've invested massive amounts of money in its build out for data centers, obviously. We've spent a lot of money in training a lot of these foundation models. At some point, we're really going to run out of information to train those models with. And a lot of that money has been spent on we'll call it the pre-training part of the model creation process. We're going to move into a completely different phase. And that phase, I think, will be inference largely, and actual use of those models in a way that is much different than they're being used today. We're going to move from what I call it the, personal productivity tool to deeply embedded in organizations. And that compute is all going to be used, and all that investment's going to be used. And I think that's when you're going to start seeing a real massive return on this investment.
So that's interesting, because one of the things that I read the other day, someone was saying that their conjecture was that there literally were more data centers being built, that there aren't enough people. If every man, woman, and child in the United States had a $20 a month subscription to an AI model, that still wouldn't be enough people to pay for all these data centers being built. What's your take on that? Is it come down to this embedded AI concept that will make that suddenly be a good investment?
I think, look, we know AI is ultimately going to be permeating part of every single application, every part of our lives, I think, at some point. And I'm not, it's not hyperbole. I really, truly think it's going to be a part of every single application that we use on a regular basis. So, no, I don't think that data center space is going to be a waste of money. I think it will be used. It's funny because it kind of reminds me back to those days when they had built out all this fiber across the entire planet. They spent an enormous amount of money on fiber optic cable. And, for years we've heard about, the fiber's dark, it's not being used. The fiber's dark, it's not being used. And, seemingly overnight, they couldn't start building it fast enough again because all that quote unquote dark fiber was now being used, and they needed a lot more fiber. Again, it's hard to predict what the future is going to be clearly, but if I'm about to look out in the future, so little of AI is being used right now, and so few individuals or so few companies are genuinely really using it, that once they start really using it, I think you're going to see the opposite occur. They're going to need more electric, more capacity, more data centers. I can't see how it goes any other way.
Now, the interesting part for me, though, is that the definition of a bubble is sometimes simply expectations versus reality, right?
Right.
So I do worry that there is this overinflated set of expectations among sort of the general populace, right?
Right.
That AI is going to magically change the world, and it's not going to take any effort. It's just going to put
Right.
an easy button on everything they do, right? And we see that with people who,
Right.
use AI to generate their work, and they don't put in the effort to actually use it appropriately.
Right.
What happens when those people become disillusioned? Like, is that a little bit of a bubble? Maybe not a strictly economic bubble, but an expectations bubble that we could see.
I think you're starting to see the beginnings of an expectations bubble now burst a little bit. I think genuinely, especially most organizations, they had this perspective or this perception that it was magic, and we'll give people ChatGPT and Claude, and all of a sudden great things are going to occur. And we realize, and you and I have been saying this literally for the better part of 2 years,
Right.
that is not the case. That maybe will burst a little bit, but I think population and corporations in general are getting better educated in the capabilities, starting to understand the limitations of the current model, thinking about things a little bit differently. Now, this is going to be a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. And I think once that starts to occur, those that maybe had a bit of trepidation, or those that where the perception bubble bursts and they really start to truly understand the capabilities, you're going to see an uptick, a dramatic uptick. I can't see it going any other way.
Yeah, I see at a human level, you've got humans who are slowly coming to terms with the fact that this is not a magic easy button. It's
Right.
actually a tool that requires effort and skill to use
Yes.
effectively. I think that corporations, many of them, most of them maybe, are lagging behind. Like, they're still
They are.
rolling this out as a tool to people.
Right.
But they're not yet broadly grasping the idea of embedding it into business processes.
No,
and
not
the
even close.
applications work, right?
You and I have spoken about this 100 times. We could probably do a whole podcast on it. I think first, a lot of the companies sold them these tools that magic was going to occur. And you and I looked at it and roll our eyes and go, there's no way. I think the other issue out there is, and you can argue with us all you want, feel free. Most companies, the CEO is putting AI under the CIO, the Chief Information Officer. And I think that is a real fundamental mistake. It doesn't belong there. And I think that's a big issue as well. And as an engineer and technologist for decades, I can say this is not the type of tool you put under technologists. It just doesn't belong there. There's a whole aspect of rolling this out, understanding deep business processes that is far more critical. And I would argue that this needs to be broken out of IT, and it's probably a cross-functional type of role in the first place that honestly reports up to the CEO.
But
And
it
until
sounds
that-
like also you're saying, though, as business really figures out how to use this tool more effectively, we will see a whole new set of demand unlocked
100%.
that doesn't exist yet.
Absolutely. I think that's just a matter of time.
Right.
Project that time? I don't know. I can't guess that, but I don't think it's that far off in the future.
All right. So you heard it here. Peter says there is no AI bubble.
So invest. All right. Next question.
You ready for another one?
Let's go. Let's see if we can stump one of us.
All right. Let's see what's next here, Peter.
I love that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, yeah. This will be a good one. For the last 2 years, spending on GenAI has dominated other forms of AI. Will that last? Right? Like, when we go talk to people, they barely want to talk about
Right.
machine learning and neural nets, and they just want to talk about GenAI. Do you think that will be as dominant in 2 or 3 years, or do you think things will balance out, or what do you think?
I don't know. That's a really good question. If I was to project that, I don't think traditional machine learning is going anyplace.
Right.
I think there is a significant benefit to doing There's a whole class of problems that just traditional statistical analysis works very effectively.
Right.
And it's cost effective.
Right.
You
And
know.
if GenAI had never come along, machine learning and traditional AI would still be a massive growth market. There are so many untapped opportunities.
I agree with your point there. Yes, I think there's a lot of untapped potential there. I don't think most organizations really most embrace true machine learning.
Yeah.
I think they might have played with it a little bit, but I don't think most organizations had the culture to embrace it. So hence, it really was always kind of a niche in an organization. I think what GenAI has done, and we said this at the very beginning of our journey, that GenAI and AI in general is the best sales tool for everything else that ever came out.
So
because
Gen
all of a
AI
sudden-
is like the gateway drug to other AI.
other AI and just more traditional machine learning.
Okay.
Because when we first started working with companies, there were many times when we proposed simple, just traditional statistical analysis.
Yes.
Because it solved the problem. You didn't need to spend a fortune on a Gen AI model. In fact, that was the worst thing you could have done.
Right.
And I think, if anything, you're going to see, I would think you would see more, if you're smart about how you deploy this, you would see more traditional machine learning first, because honestly, it's also a natural way of progressing the organization to get comfortable with this stuff,
Right.
rather than jumping into, I'm going to go from driving a Volkswagen Bug to a Ferrari overnight. You need to learn how to do that. It takes time.
Right. But I would also say, though, that Gen AI has one unique advantage, and it's also something you and I have talked about many times, which is it's the only form of AI that you can touch and see and feel, right?
Yes.
Like machine learning and statistical methods are still the domain of experts.
Yes, and people,
anybody can use Gen AI, not always well, but anyone can use it.
Right.
And so it sort of is always, I think, always going to take up a lot of attention.
You're right. No, you're
accessible.
you're 100% correct. And look, traditional statistical analysis, you need to know math. You need to understand math. You need to put the math in context. Somebody needs to explain that to you. That's not the domain of everybody. Whereas Gen AI, like you said, you can do things, you can touch it, you can feel it. It's English language, it's image generation, it's video generation. And that's powerful. It's a powerful sales tool.
Yeah.
And you're not going to supersede that.
So end of 2027, do you think we'll still be
I think
hearing more about Gen AI than machine learning?
I think we will. I think it'll ultimately wind up being the boat to lift everything up.
Right.
Because I think naturally what organizations are going to have to do is become just more mature about dealing with analytics and data in general. And I think the benefit of that just lifts everybody up.
Right.
And that's how I think I've always looked at it at the beginning. If you get into an org and they say, well, I got this particular use case, and well, there's easy ways to solve that, and it's just traditional modeling techniques, and it saves you hundreds of thousands of dollars. You've educated somebody else.
So if this is a case of the rising tide lifting all boats,
absolutely, yes.
Does that mean that data scientists will eventually see a sort of a renewal of demand for traditional data scientists?
I think maybe I'm wrong on this account. I think traditional data scientists, you'll see a lot of those functions, I'd say, rolled into some of these models, which you're already seeing. Mm-hmm. So maybe a flat to negative demand. I don't know. I could be wrong on this one. I think, you look at some of the models that have gotten so powerful, and they do have capabilities in a lot of cases for analyzing numerical data. Shockingly good. Yeah. Shockingly good. And in case then you beg the question is, do I really need a data scientist to do this and interpret it for me? I think there'll always be cases. Don't get me wrong. There'll always be a lot of cases out there where having a true machine learning expert is going to be very appropriate. Again, you don't want to use these models for everything. It's also it's not cost effective. It's very expensive. So, and again, if I can solve the problem with a ball peen hammer, I don't need to go out with the big sledgehammer, and the model being a sledgehammer and the ball peen hammer being a nice traditional statistical analysis approach.
So I want to build on that, because I look at data scientists as sort of having two parts of what they do. One is they are a mathematician. They understand the mathematical models that they're applying to data. But then the other thing that they are is I sort of think of them as an investigative journalist.
Yes.
Right? They're understanding a business problem. They're talking to lots of people. They're trying to figure out the boundaries of that question or that problem or that opportunity. They're figuring out what data points could they use and how could they investigate. I think that is a necessary skill that isn't going to go away. The application of math and algorithms to data sets, as you said, we're seeing AI models that do that autonomously very, very effectively.
Right.
But I don't think that they're going to learn the business, ask the question, follow their intuition, ask the follow-up question, et cetera. So maybe it's a data scientist has a slightly different set of skills in a couple of years than they do today.
I mean, that's a good point. I don't know. I mean, I can also make the argument, if a business person wants to do, like a business person today will go to a data scientist and say, I'm trying to understand the market more broadly. Can you give me a better perspective of things, rather than giving them the tool themselves and access to the data sets and ask English-like questions of this information and get answers in a way that is communicated to them at the level they're at. Yeah. In a way that's clear. I imagine going into a language model and say, analyze this market with these 15 different data sets and break it down and look for causal relationships or correlation here or there, and then explain it to me like I'm in fourth grade. Right. And I think that's powerful.
That's very powerful. And so under that model, that data scientist sort of morphs into a different type of role that is not all about mathematics and data science. It's about a more generalized set of how do you analyze something. And
I've always thought of data scientist as, and I ran data science teams, so I could 80% manipulating, massaging information so that it's in good shape, so you can do the 20% analysis. But a large component of it is communication.
yes,
It's
it's
telling a story. It's all about telling a story at the end of the day. It's good graphs techniques. It's understanding graphing. It's understanding math enough so that you could explain it to somebody that is not mathematical, and that's hard to do.
Right.
And honestly,
it's translating that model that gives you as output a number between 0 and 1 into something that someone understands.
Exactly.
Through graphs, pictures, words, whatever.
And that's what a lot of these models excel at very well.
Right. Interesting.
So I don't know. I guess it's, though they become more niche, I would venture to guess probably yes.
So I think we're both landing on the side that at least for the next few years, GenAI is probably still going to be a dominant form of AI.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
I agree with
And
that.
talking through it, yes, I think so.
All right. How you feeling? You ready for another one?
Oh, come on. Keep them coming.
All right.
Faster.
All right.
Let's go.
Hit him, dealer. And you notice it's taking away ones we've talked about, so the options are getting smaller. Oh, this is one you're going to have feelings about. Or as they say, this is going to make you feel some way. So as the dust settles on vibe coding, and by that I mean we're finally like the hype is dying down. People are starting to talk about like the ins and outs, the pros and cons of non-coders using code generation tools to code. What does all this mean to you as far as like where do we go with AI code generation? Is it a flash in the pan? Is it real? Is it good or bad?
I have, and I will readily acknowledge my thoughts on this have evolved and continue to evolve.
It's good.
I think that's that's good. Look, I don't like to be very regimented in my thinking. I think you got to evolve. I think it's not going away. I think it is an incredibly powerful tool, and I think it can really make a good engineer highly efficient. And I think you'd be crazy not to do it. We've seen efficiency gains on our side. And I think I've told you this before. We've seen different ways of doing software development than we've done them in the past, where you spend a lot of time writing out the problem, how you would solve it before you put it into a coding model and it generates the code for you. To me, that's incredibly powerful, but it's a different way of thinking. I don't think engineers per se are going to go away. Mm-hmm. I think you're still effective at your coding. You need to understand what you're doing. I don't yet see me giving this tool to a business person and say, go develop something. Not yet. You're not there yet. They do create massive amounts of efficiency.
Yes.
Is the code always beautiful? No, it's not. That's why I still think you need an engineer with engineering mindset. Yep. But I can take a good coder and I could up their output dramatically. That's a really powerful tool. Right. You can iterate over things very quickly. You can have it look for issues in the code. You're not going to look. I love this stuff. I think it's great. Having used a lot of these tools myself, I think they're brilliant. I mean, it's allowed me to do coding, having not coded in a long time.
And it probably allows you to take what you already know about coding and apply it to a new language or a new database or some new tool set very
much
very
faster.
quickly.
And I see there are places where I would have spent 2 weeks writing code by hand, where I got an API, it was readily available. I said, give me a Python wrapper for this. I pointed to docs, and 2 minutes later, I have a whole bunch of Python code that's clean and easy to use. Right. Would have taken me a week, and I would have had to debug it, all that. You save a massive amount of time. Now, would I go off and use it for a highly complex financial trading system yet? Not yet. No, I don't think we're quite there yet. But would I use it for a lot of pieces in the system? Yes, absolutely.
So that's an interesting point, because there's this idea of what's mission critical and what's not.
Right.
And I remember years ago at one of the banks I worked at, we were planning a large cloud migration, and we had many thousands of applications.
Right.
And I think mentally I just thought of all of them as they're all applications, right? And some of them were payment processing apps, and some were wealth management apps, and some were trading apps, et cetera. And when you peeled back the covers and looked at all these applications, probably the vast majority of them were very non-mission critical.
Right.
Some of them were literally things that got executed once a quarter or even once a year.
Right.
And they only had a few users, but they were automating processes that had to be done. And it's really interesting, because I think a lot of organizations, large organizations, are that way, where the value is concentrated in a small number of the applications. And they have a whole bunch of other applications that just have to work. They don't have to be super fast, super efficient. And I wonder if that's a place where these AI generated code maybe
Yeah.
plays a bigger role, because it's maybe okay to say, I'm not going to put as much time and effort into fine
Right.
tuning that kind of application.
No, I agree. And I think that's a great place for a lot of these tools. But again, you're at the beginning of a journey, and tools are going to get better and better and better.
Right.
And you're going to be able to go up the food chain and deal with greater degrees of complexity than you could even today. And don't get me wrong, you can get really complicated. We've done some really complicated stuff with these tools already. But again, it's going to change. My thoughts will clearly evolve. What I don't believe in, and this is different than when at the very beginning, is eliminating junior staff or eliminating those out of college, primarily because you think these tools are going to replace them. I think that's foolish.
Right.
And then that's actually arguably a tremendous mistake. You're always going to need good engineering talent. That's not going to go away. And I'd argue you probably need it now more than ever because of the rapidly changing landscape. These tools are efficiency tools. They're great efficiency tools, and you should continue to use them as efficiency tools. They're not I don't think, and when I hear the stuff in the news that we're getting rid of or eliminating 1,000 employees or whatever because of AI tools, I'm sorry, that's just incredibly short-sighted.
And personally, I think a lot of these announcements about reducing AI headcount, IT headcount or other headcount,
Right.
because they're being replaced by AI, is really just a smokescreen for
Absolutely.
reductions in force,
Yes.
for layoffs and downsizing for economic reasons. Has nothing to do with AI.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. I think a lot of companies are taking advantage of the messaging out there, but that also feeds into the messaging to the broader population that, oh yeah, he's going to take all our jobs.
Right.
Which,
But it helps them turn what would be perceived as a negative event into a positive. It went from we're having financial trouble and we need to reduce headcount to we're so smart, we're figured out how to reduce headcount by bringing in AI.
And you and I have spoken to literally hundreds of people, if not more than that, in the last year and a half. Actually, arguably a lot more than that. I will be honest and blunt here. I don't think people are quite that smart yet to be able to. And I think they're just grossly oversimplifying things and they're making mistakes. And we're at the beginning of I will argue, is a multi-decade journey.
Oh, I totally agree. So what advice would you give to an early career, a software engineer, early career?
Right.
Is there a way that they can use code gen tools to help learn
better? No, I think, look, when you're coming out of college, you have a basic, I don't even call it master. We have a basic set of skills, and you have to continue to evolve your skills and grow and develop and learn. I do think in many cases these tools can help you get there faster because it's generating code. It's giving you things to work with. And then, the way I used to learn about code when I was young, you start out by learning somebody else's code. And then you fix somebody else's code, or you look for bugs in the code, and you debug the code, and you iterate over it with a debugging tool or print statements or whatever you did. But that was a real fundamental way I learned how to code at the very beginning. I think a lot of developers, you learn that way. And there's no different here. If you're smart, you'll use these tools to learn what went wrong, and things that don't get fixed, and there's plenty of things that they can't fix, go into the code yourself and adjust and or tweak the code.
And one of the powerful use cases for these tools is exactly that. It's having them analyze a code base and tell you how it's structured, how it works, what might be improved, et cetera.
Right. I think with that, you start developing some real core engineering skills and software development skills. And again, that needs not going away anytime soon. I wouldn't want to be the company that said I'm laying off all my junior employees and replace them with AI. And fast forward 3 years when all the senior folks have walked out the door and gone someplace else, and you have nobody in house.
Right.
To me, naive as hell. You don't do that.
Short-sighted. You don't want
very short-sighted. Yes.
All right. Well, let's try another one. We're on a roll.
Let's keep going.
Let's see what we can do here.
It's a little against
You just love the pointer in the middle, right?
It's great.
All right. Okay.
Let's go in.
So this is what experience in your life? It could be work experience. It could be a course you had in college. It could be just a life experience. But what shaped you into someone who feels comfortable with AI today? Because it's a whole new world. But what prepared you for that?
I don't. It wasn't one event. Obviously having an engineering background, I think helped me understand the models at a deep layer. But I don't think that I wouldn't go back to saying that's the thing. I think what really shaped me was in many ways my education and I want to keep out of the STEM side because I don't necessarily think that was part of it. It was learning how to think, learning how to write, learning how to critical think. And I didn't learn those always in STEM classes. I learned those more traditional humanities types classes. And then that was really important. That coupled with sitting on in my case, sitting on a trading desk for a very long time and having a deep understanding of the business. That's not technical. That's understanding a domain. That's understanding it really well. And you're spending a lot of time speaking to people, trying to articulate how you would solve a problem or articulate a problem and just in general communicating a lot.
Right.
And if I had to get my ideas and thoughts out there, I was putting together decks the old-fashioned hard way. I was writing papers. I was doing all that kind of stuff that you don't typically think is maybe germane to this, but that's really what allowed me to become very effective at using these tools more than anything.
Interesting. I would say for me, it was taking apart a camera. So
Interesting. Why?
when I was a little kid, I used to take apart anything I could because I wanted to see how it worked.
Yeah.
And like my unquenchable desire was, what makes this work?
I love that.
It's not magic. There's a method. There's a way it works.
Yeah.
And I've always liked doing that. I took apart a camera to see how it works. I used to take, I don't know, everything I could get
Same thing.
take apart.
Yep.
And I think just years of doing that, whenever I see a new software product, and I'm sure I was like the bane of many software salespeople's existence because you would show me this amazing looking piece of software and everyone else in the room is like, ooh, show me what it does. And I'd be like, whoa, hold on. How does it do that one thing it did?
Right.
Like, explain to me exactly what it's doing.
Right.
You know, what is it using as inputs? Is there an inferencing going on? Like, what is it doing?
Right.
I have to know how it works. And so I spent, obviously, over decades, a lot of time like figuring out how stuff works in the software world and in the physical world. And I think when generative AI came around, I just sort of jumped into like, I know everyone's saying it's too complicated, but like, it's not. There are parts of it that are too complicated. Trust me, right?
Yeah,
like
parts that are hard.
But there's also some parts that are very straightforward if you're willing to dive in and see how it works.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so I feel like I started feeling more comfortable with generative AI. I felt very uncomfortable the first time I saw it. I was like, this is alien, this is foreign. And eventually when I did enough reading and started to feel like, okay, now I know what it's doing. I understand the mechanism at play. Even if I couldn't recreate it, that helped. So I think to me it goes back to like the fact that I used to take stuff apart as a kid.
I love that idea. I love that notion. And it's funny you should say that because, you and I have been working together for 2 years, and I feel like every time we have a discussion about what I did as a kid or this, and we led a parallel life.
Yes.
And our interests are very similar in many cases, and I'm always fascinated by it.
Did you ever get the camera back together? Because I didn't.
I didn't do the camera, but I remember when I was young, my father gave me my grandfather's pocket watch, and the first thing I did when I got home was take the whole thing apart.
Love it.
My parents are like, here we go again.
Yep.
That, and I had the chemistry set in the basement that with chemicals these days you could no longer get, like arsenic, and I think there were even some radioactive ones out there. And I was in the basement putting things together.
I'm pretty sure we could have blown up a house with those chemistry sets we had as kids. They were crazy.
Then there's the digress for 1 second, and there's a time my mother was in the kitchen looking out the window washing dishes, and she sees smoke wafting up from outside, and she's like, Peter, what'd you do? Apparently I had set something on fire outside, not knowing that I was doing some experiment, and I set something on fire, went in the house.
But you figured something out, I'm sure.
I learned quite a bit.
Good.
I learned how to not get caught.
I think to me this is interesting because you and I see a lot of people who are overwhelmed by AI as it's currently unfolding, and they're trying to figure it out. And I think one of the things you and I connected over when we first started talking about what we wanted to do is it's really important for people to have some appreciation, some ability to connect with how models work.
Yes.
Not necessarily to be really deep in the technical detail, but to understand enough that it becomes less of a black box mysterious machine and more of a predictable, this is what's going to happen sort of experience.
I think if you understand the tool that you're working with, even better than you do just by typing in stuff. Like understand what the model's doing underneath the covers. And you don't need a PhD in math to do that. You and I have explained it to people a million times. Yeah, we're both proof of that. Like, you don't need to understand it. You need to understand at a level kind of how they function. That goes a long way towards using them far more effectively and getting better results out of it and building a mental model which works. Right. And I don't think most people have I know most people don't have any mental model of how this works. It's just a black box to them. But if you really want, especially in a business, you really want to get the most out of it, having a mental model is incredibly important.
Right. And that's really what's behind our sort of mission, if you will, to demystify AI. And help people understand it.
Teach them how this stuff works. Because if you understand how it works, you're going to get so much more out of it.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Next question.
Let's move on. Let's see
go.
what we got for you here, Peter. I can't remember if I put any real zinger questions in here. I don't think I did. I think I took them out.
A couple of
but,
zingers would have been good.
Yeah. Let's find out. Well, this is an interesting, maybe a controversial topic, which is, should companies and individuals disclose or even be required to disclose when they use generative AI? Because we hear a lot about AI labeling being proposed.
You and I have had this conversation multiple times. I feel like we have. I know
We've never resolved it.
I know, and I think it's funny. I think the first time was you thought we should. I think I can make it wrong here, and I thought we should. I still don't think we should. I don't think I feel the necessity to disclose that it's like, why not disclose that you're using analytics? Why not disclose that you're using other tools? Like, where's the dividing line? I think we put, we're raising AI and generative AI to some, level that we have to now disclose it.
Right.
I don't care.
I mean, one argument, certainly, and you said this earlier in the episode, you said it's going to be ubiquitous, it's going to be everywhere, right? So at what point does disclosing the use of AI become meaningless because it's everywhere?
I think it's meaningless today already. I don't think, it's easy to find things that probably don't use it than actually use it.
And some people argue, I'm going to support your position on this for a minute, because some people would argue that, like, you often don't need to disclose it because it's plainly evident when people don't use AI well, when they just create AI slop, they phone it in. And
exactly. I guess my question, and more fundamentally, like, what is the benefit of disclosing that you're using AI or a generative AI? Is it going to change most people's thoughts on using something or not? I don't think so.
So that's a great question. So I've evolved in my thinking on this topic, and I don't think that mandatory disclosure is the right answer.
Right.
I think sort of two things related to this. So one is, I do think, at least now, it feels like the right thing to do in many cases for me to disclose how I'm using AI. So it's less of a labeling.
Right.
There's a binary created by AI or not created by AI, because that's meaningless. Everything is going to be touched by AI in some way.
Absolutely.
What I do feel a compulsion to do often is to explain to people how I'm using it.
Right.
Sort of to demystify. And maybe there's a little bit of defensiveness in there too, because I want to assert that I'm not cheating. I want to assert that I am still putting my own thoughts and effort into something while still using AI as a tool. So, and maybe that will go away. See, maybe that's just me being reactive to people's suspicions about AI.
Right. And it's funny because I find it more troubling when somebody doesn't announce that they're using it when they've used it and they've created something that they can't even talk to, rather than somebody who said, you know what, I did this and I used AI and this is what I did and this is the process I followed. I'm far more cool with that. I think that I'm okay with, especially in a corporate setting.
Right.
Don't lie, because you're all using it. I'm sorry. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's using it on some level or another. You're making your life, you're trying to make your life easier, whatever it is. I think, but I don't think it needs to be announced to the world. We're using generative AI as a company, because
maybe somewhere on my professional profile on LinkedIn or somewhere, maybe I should be having like my AI manifesto that says, this is how I believe it should be used for my,
it's
how
actually
I
a good
use
idea.
It. Right. Because then anyone who reads something I wrote can say, well, let me see, is David clear about what he's doing and not doing?
I think that's actually a brilliant idea.
All right. I'll add it to my profile.
Add your profile. I like that.
Yeah. So, I think that's interesting. The other thing that comes up a lot for people is, as take this now more in the standpoint of a consumer. If you're dealing with a company and a company is using AI to make a decision that could impact you, do you think you should have a right to know that AI was used to make that decision?
Well, what's different than asking a company if they're using a statistical model to do the same thing?
Right.
No different.
Right. No different.
I mean, if you're assuming that everything is a manual process these days, then you're like coming out of, 1960 and you jumped into the future.
Well, and here's the flaw I see in that thinking too, not in your thinking, in what people generally believe, because there's this idea that if I know that AI made a decision, then I could ask for a human to make a better decision.
And that's not the case.
Yeah, exactly. We know that humans are highly fallible.
Right.
And a lot of AI models will make a better, less biased, more objective decision than the person.
Yes.
So maybe what we're really back to is, do people have a right to request a review? Right.
Yeah, and that's
Regardless
fine.
of whether
And
AI made the original decision or not.
That's acceptable. Ask for a review. Why don't you ask for a review? I have no problem with that. But I don't feel the need to tell somebody that we had a model behind it making a decision, evaluating, because we have 12,000 data points on you and we're making a decision using a math model. I don't feel the need to tell anybody that.
And to be fair, maybe it's similar to the case of AI generated content too. Maybe we're getting very close to the point where everyone should and will assume that there is some
Right.
AI at work in most processes.
Right, and I think I don't think it's a valid assumption yet, but it will at some point be a very valid assumption.
All right.
But most processes, any kind of automation is some level of smarts and all this stuff.
Okay, well, stay tuned for my personal artist statement on the use of AI.
I
I'll
look
try to-
forward to that, as long as you don't write it with AI. No, I'm kidding.
I promise I will write it manually. Maybe I'll do some spell checking. So, all right.
All right, are we on to another question?
I think let's do it. I think we can squeeze in another couple here. Yeah.
What is my New Year's Eve? Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I got to think about that for a second. What is my resolution? I don't know if I have a resolution per se. Maybe it's an evolution.
Okay. How would you evolve?
It's funny because, you and I both use it fairly significantly in
Yes.
most of what we do. And I think there's still additional places that I think of every single day that, I could use it there. I can use it there. Things that are just benign, like things I wouldn't think of.
Right.
Like, well, I need to have dinner tonight, so let me see what's in the fridge, take a picture of my fridge, and have it tell me what to make for dinner. Like stuff like that. I know it sounds stupid, but I don't know. I think I find that the more I evolve, I find more places to use it in areas where I necessarily wouldn't have thought. So I start looking for other opportunities to use it in other places. I think the one thing, though, if I'm going to say my resolution is education. I think using the tools to better educate me.
Yep.
I have not really done a lot of that. I think would be very effective because there's so much more I can learn. And these tools I call it hyper-personalization of education, is fantastic.
I like that one because there is so much. I'm going to steal that one from you.
Go for it.
Because, you and I both spend hours and hours and hours every week reading reports and papers and articles and things about AI.
Right.
And it's very hard to keep up with. And so
Yeah.
I think if I could fix that problem with AI and
Right.
use AI to help me be a more efficient learner.
Yes.
And the more we can learn, the more we can help explain to people, the more
Right.
we can help clarify. So I think I like that one.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good one. I want to be like, I like that idea because I think the more we learn, the more we're helping the people that we work with and obviously educating because we clearly have, I think you and I have fallen into the space for better. We like to educate.
Right.
I think we like talking about this stuff. We like articulating and we feel like we have a way of articulating relatively complex topics, in a fairly simple way. And I think these tools can help us more.
And based on some of the conversations you and I were having just a few hours ago, I think we can use AI tools to even create better visuals and videos
Yes.
and graphics to help explain
Yes.
complex concepts.
Yeah.
Like we are working very hard these days to turn complex concepts into words that we can explain to people,
Right.
supported by simple diagrams. But I think
You'll lose
it's
a
going
lot.
to get easier and easier to
Yeah.
create rich content that helps
Oh,
teach and communicate.
I agree with you 110%. And in all fairness, some of this stuff is very dense.
Right.
I mean, the deeper you get into the weeds and you try to articulate some of this stuff, and there's good content out there, but, when you want to make targeted content for a certain, types of individuals at a firm, having very specific content will go a long way to helping just get the point across.
I saw a humorous video just yesterday. It was a college professor standing up introducing his class to the semester he was going to teach on quantum mechanics. And he said something to the effect of, today I stand in front of you as an individual who doesn't understand quantum mechanics. By the end of the semester, I will have all of you not understanding quantum mechanics because it is that unknowable, that complicated. So that isn't our goal. With
No,
AI,
that is not our goal. And I don't think this comes up to the rank of quantum mechanics, but it's not far off.
No, but I think I like the idea of using AI to help us communicate and teach and explain better. My other goal for it simply is I want to use it to improve my coding skills. I haven't coded professionally in a long time.
Right.
I'm mediocre at best at it, I would say these days. I'm very out of practice. Unless COBOL or assembly language makes a comeback, my skills are a little dated. Or Pascal, or
Oh, that's
or Ada.
oh my! All languages on the list of languages that are dying.
Yep, Lisp was a
Lisp
yep.
is dead forever.
Yep. So unless those languages come back, my skills are probably a little dated. But in all seriousness, I think I really want to use AI to help me be a better coder next year.
Yeah. No, I think, hey, look, it's funny you say you want to be a better coder. I want to use it so that I can do more coding, and there are projects that I'd like to do that I know I don't have the time that I had to sit in front of a computer for 40 hours, 50 hours a week writing code, where I can at least get to a POC or an MVP now a lot quicker. And that is, to me, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I understand the technology, I understand the engineering, I know how to build stuff. I'm time.
Right. Good. I think we have some clear goals.
We're
in a year's time,
good.
we'll figure out.
Let's
whether
see.
we
Next year we have next year's.
Yeah.
I have something for you that you should think about if you want to, for your resolution. Maybe let's cross some things off your rider. You know what I mean? That would I'm just saying. It might make things easier for all of us.
I want my outside, what do I want outside? My van outside with my help before I sit here.
Producer
Get the
Pete chiming in with some
Skittles
good.
and M&Ms.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want a certain tequila. I want my M&Ms, and again, get rid of the certain colors. Come on, you're not.
Like that just added things to the list.
You are.
I
you
think
are
it
not.
did. I think it did.
You
but
are not.
But for the next edition of Roulette, we're gonna have those on there. So don't worry, Pete. Don't worry. All right. Can I torture you with one more question?
Yeah, let's
here?
go one more.
Let's
This is
do it.
great. Come on, let's go.
All right. So the odds are getting better. There's only 4 left. I think I know what this one is. Yeah. So
Ooh,
what will be the biggest
partnerships,
AI news?
acquisitions front?
Yeah.
Ooh,
is someone going to buy OpenAI?
I don't think anybody can afford OpenAI or Claude right now, honestly. Right. And there had been rumors in the past that Amazon wasn't thinking about buying Claude. That's a good one. The powerhouse players, I think, will do the buying. I think what you're going to probably see are them buying up a lot of smaller firms. And I think if I was, let's go for a hypothetical here. If I was NVIDIA, there are quite
just going to ask you that.
Yeah, there's quite a number of smaller firms out there that do the inference aspect of it much better than they do.
Right.
Much, much better. They don't do the pre-training
part. So
part.
you're seeing NVIDIA buying hardware companies that make inferencing chips.
Yes, I definitely see that.
Right.
I think that will, because I think we're moving into that stage where faster inferencing chips are far more important.
And if you took their inferencing chip design of the acquired company with NVIDIA's expertise in fabrication, that could be super powerful.
You got a game winner over there.
What about NVIDIA buying a second-tier language model company?
No, I don't think they're going to do that. In fact, NVIDIA already generates a couple of their own language models. They're not super popular, but I don't think they're going to go into that space. I just don't see that being any real benefit to them.
Right.
It's like, why am I going to spread myself thin? What they do phenomenally well. They do have some models. They have vision models. They have, translation models. They have audio to text models. They have a lot of models out there already. I just don't see that being their strength. And they have such a lock on the model because of the CUDA architecture. I just don't see. I mean,
what about the hyperscalers? Do you see any big changes in maybe partnerships or acquisitions there?
Let's look at the major ones. So you got Amazon. Yeah, you have Amazon, you have Google, and you have Microsoft. All, I think, are on largely equal footing in some ways. I think Google, from a technology perspective, being its technology company, is way more ahead in the model part. And
latest releases of Gemini have just been jaw-dropping, right?
Yeah, no, and I think this
very
is
powerful.
they came up with the architecture, so I think they're way ahead in certain aspects of that. I think they've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but their technology, I think, is fundamentally
And that's a great
good.
point. I'm not sure how many people really remember on a regular basis that Google DeepMind is where a lot of what powers
This
large
came out,
language
exactly.
models was developed.
You look at all the early papers on this; they're all Google papers.
Yeah.
They came up with the transformer architecture. They came up with BERT. They came up with embeddings. They come up with all this stuff. So they're really the father of a lot of this technology and making it practical. But they kind of dropped the ball along the way, and they didn't really capitalize on it in a way that would have locked. They just didn't.
Right. I mean, OpenAI's brilliance was putting an easy-to-use skin on top of these.
Yes,
models,
exactly.
right?
That was the one brilliant thing they actually did. you look at Microsoft, which is, yes, they have their own models. They have, they use OpenAI largely, and there's been agreements between OpenAI and Microsoft. There's been agreements with everybody. I don't see an acquisition either way. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to do acquisitions there. I think that would be very problematic.
What about Apple? Where do you see Apple going?
That's a good question, actually.
Because
And
they've
it's funny.
got the money to buy
They can buy
substantial things.
They are one of the ones that probably
They're the
could
wild
afford.
card.
They're the wild card, and they lag behind. They're not the first to jump into new technologies. They go a little bit slower, a little more thoughtful.
But they always make a big impact when they finally get there.
Yeah, and I think their home right now is really OpenAI, and that's what they've been using behind the scenes. It's a good question. I don't argue. I don't like further.
But there've been a lot of whisperings about them having partnership with Gemini too.
I'm sure they're playing their cards
generation
well.
Siri.
Yeah, I'm sure they're playing their cards well. I
Yeah.
think that would be smart. I mean, look, Apple's sitting on what, $1 trillion in cash? Well, you could do a lot with $1 trillion in cash. You
Couldn't we all?
could buy a few countries.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We're not going to name them.
Yeah,
We don't wanna-
you could probably buy a lot of countries these days. I don't like the idea of a lot of deep consolidation already, honestly. I think that's not healthy for the industry. I would rather see a more diversification. I think, unfortunately, given just the nature of language models and what you need to do to train them, you're not going to see a ton of truly open source models out there because the cost to train is just simply too high. So it's really it's the big companies that can afford to compute to do this type of work.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I predict, and it's not much of a prediction, but we'll see if it comes true, that the independent open source models are going to get just cost prohibitive to keep improving. And what we're going to have instead are open weight versions of proprietary models.
Right, which we've seen, and they all have. I mean, OpenAI has them, Microsoft has them, Google has them. They all have these open weight models. You don't know the underlying architecture. You don't know what they've been trained on.
Right.
There is so many limitations to the open weight model. I don't particularly like it. But again, you can't afford to train a model these days. What are you going to spend? Not every company has $100, $200 million to go spend on compute to go do all this. And unless there's some radical breakthrough in either model design or the architecture behind the model or the chips and how they parallelize all this to bring the costs way down, which I haven't seen anything even close to that yet, the cost is just ridiculous.
Right. And speaking from my experience over the last, say, 9 months, I've been less excited by the advancements in new models per se in terms of the capabilities of the foundational model, and more excited by the way that the ecosystem hooks together, right? Things like MCP, Model Context Protocol, things like having a desktop application that can connect to my Google Drive or my applications on my desktop, etc. Things like deep research and URL grounding and other things. Those aren't capabilities of the model. Those are sort of
built around it.
Wrappers built around them.
Yeah,
that
no,
make
exactly.
them more useful and more powerful, and that's really exciting to me.
And that's the logical next phase. I mean, you're building all this stuff around it so they become truly useful to you on a regular basis, and it makes it easier to interoperate with everything. And you've seen, we've done together some of these demonstrations with MCP and building UIs and doing it literally in half an hour and having a powerful tool very quickly. So I agree. One thing I actually missed earlier, I want to come back to a little bit, is there have been changes or there have been architectural changes that are on the horizon that I've seen one, and I can't remember the name of it, where fine-tuning was actually very easy to do on a laptop and not super compute intensive because of how it was done. There's a lot of research into making these models more efficient and just coming up with different. This particular model design was transformerless. So there are other things that are on the horizon. I still think they're 3 to 5 years away, but there is a lot of research, including the Meta former AI chief of AI, Jan LeCun, who's actually going in a completely different direction because he's very clear autoregressive models are not the future, and he has a different approach to actually develop models.
That will be the bombshell that changes the industry again.
Yes.
When someone comes out with a non-transformer architecture-based model that is, by definition, will probably be 100 times, if not 1,000 times more energy efficient and compute efficient.
Right. That'll be the bomb. That'll be the neutron bomb. You roll into the middle of the room and just eliminates everybody. Yeah. Now, I think that's off. Because everybody's still spending massive amounts of money on these autoregressive models, and look, you could only take it so far. There's an end game to it all.
Yes.
They're not self-learning. There's much they don't do. There's certainly that said, obviously we know they're incredibly powerful, and depending on your definition of intelligent, you can even argue that they're intelligent. So we'll see.
Good. Well, let's ask producer Pete if we have time for one more question. What do you think? Can we do another one?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. All right, we're going to do a speed round.
All right, speed round.
Fast as we can go. Maybe we can get through 2 or 3.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Pushing the envelope.
Yeah, hey, we got to keep the energy
Let's
up
keep it
here.
down to 1 or 2 words.
Okay. Peter, context window sizes keep growing. What is this going to mean to people? Like, better capabilities, what's it do to cost, what's it do to performance? Because these are not all, it's not all good news.
No,
right?
it's not all good news. Look, I could argue that a $3 or $4 or $5 million token context window is just, one, it makes the model more complex. 2, the designer has to get really funky about how to cache certain parts of this because it just becomes very costly to do this. And remember, you're going through hundreds of layers in a model, if not thousands. You have trillions of parameters in a model. So the more context window, the more compute, the more energy, and go on.
And it gets really expensive.
It gets really expensive, and it's not necessarily a good thing.
It makes people lazy. I read an article
Yes.
where someone said, hey, I've just invented a new alternative to retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, which is meant to deal with context window sizes. And the answer was, use a model with a big context window and just load all of your documents as part of the system instructions so they get processed with every single prompt you do.
And that's not the answer.
Like, that's a great way to spend $10,000 a day on.
Exactly. And I don't think people realize, the companies don't realize, you're getting charged based on tokens.
All right.
Anyway, we can go on.
Question next.
Let's,
Right answer next.
Yep, we're moving on. I really hope it's the one about 2025 because I do want to get your thoughts on this one. And it's going to be
It's
this
going to
one.
be 50-50 chance here.
This is the one I was hoping we'd get to talk about. 2025 was supposed to be the year of the agent. How did that work out? What do you think? Was it the year of the agent? Have we gotten there yet?
No, we have not even come close to that.
Yeah.
I think it's the year of really good marketing.
I love it.
That's what I think.
The
Yes.
year of talking about agents.
Exactly. It's like everybody's talking about it, but nobody's doing it. Sorry. It's usually old
I'm
grammar
so tired
school.
of people saying, I have an agentic solution. I'm like, really? Tell me about it. And they're like, well, it can act like a customer service agent. I'm like, that's not agentic.
That's not a solution. Let me tell you, it is. Yeah, we're
Okay,
ways
so
off.
Do you believe in agents?
I believe in agents. I believe in the concept of agents. I think they will evolve to be what they should be, which is truly autonomous pieces of software that are driven by direction that you give it and not walking you through a series of steps.
Is 2026 going to be the year of the agent?
No,
2027?
possibly.
Okay, I'm not going to push my luck, but you heard it here.
possibly.
It's not going to happen in a year.
Let me tell you something.
Next question.
All right. Hell, we're going to finish them all.
Oh, we did it all.
Let's do it. No, we got one more.
Peter's face.
You should have it blow up now to a full screen.
I have to improve my coding
Present
skills.
the
to do
rider
that,
for
yeah.
26.
Yes.
All right. What do most people get wrong about using tools?
What did they get wrong?
In 30 seconds or less.
What did they get wrong? They think they are accurate, predictive models that will come up with the same answer every single time, and it is not the case.
And they think it's the easy button and they don't have to work very hard to use them well.
I like your answer a lot better than mine.
one,
Yes,
yeah.
that's really the answer. Yes.
All right. Peter, you've been a great sport. Thank you for playing
Thank
AI
you.
Roulette.
I love it. Can you say one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
A fool with the tool is still a fool.
It would not be an episode
Sorry,
if you
I
didn't
got to
say
fit that in.
A fool with a tool is still a fool.
Back to this.
No, thank you for playing AI Roulette.
This
You're
is
a good
great,
sport.
actually.
It was a lot of fun, and
Yes.
we'll do it again.
Yeah, no, we definitely. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Great.
So, as you mentioned at the top of the episode, we are going to do an upcoming episode where we want to answer your questions, and they can be questions about anything AI related. If there's a concept or a technology you'd like to understand better and you would like us to attempt to explain it.
Yep.
If it's a question about the application of AI, about safety, ethics, responsible AI, education, you name it, we'll do our best to answer it. So send those to us. You can put them in comments on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, or email them to podcast@allinondata.com, and we'll do our best to answer
We'll
it.
do our best.
Until
Awesome.
then, we'll
David,
see you
thank
for
you.
the next episode.
Absolutely. This was awesome.
Thank you for joining us on Call Me Data.
Have a great
Bye,
day, everybody.
everyone. Thanks for watching Call Me Data. If you enjoyed our podcast, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And make sure to stay up to date with us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.